Today we're on the Rolling Fork River near the community of Calvary, which is in Marion County, Kentucky. This is a very beautiful part of the state. And we're going to float from Calvary down to a newly improved access at the US 68 bridge. This float is a very easy float. It's really short compared to a lot of our blue water trails we've done in the past, but that's okay because it's fall, and fall usually means low water. The thing about this float that's good for fall is the fact that there's 2 low-head dams, which I'm not usually a big fan of, but they provide water for this float year-round. So even when it's dry, you can paddle this stretch of the Rolling Fork. Oh! Whoa! I'll take that one. Gosh, this is nuts. This stretch is unique because you can catch all 3 species of black bass. You can catch smallmouth bass, you can catch spotted bass, and you can also catch largemouth bass.
Well, this is an abnormal section just because it's pooled, more pooled than it is the riffle. It's that the upper stretch that we are technically in is more rock bass, smallmouth fishing.
As you go into this float, it kind of changes rather dramatically about halfway through. The impact of a low-head dam, which is a little bit downstream of US 68 bridge, gets to be felt. The river gets wider and it gets deeper, and it becomes more habitat for spotted bass and largemouth bass. Marion County has done an excellent job in providing infrastructure for the Rolling Fork. A beautiful walk down, paved, carry down here at Calvary, and a beautiful paved takeout at US 68 bridge. So this has fantastic infrastructure. You're spoiled here on the Rolling Fork. The thing about this float too that's unique is you can make it a half-a-day float. You could put in at daybreak and be done by lunch, maybe earlier, or you could take all day. If you plan to fish hard, you could easily take a good chunk of the day taking your time and fishing all the available structures and areas on here that hold fish. The first thing I caught smallmouth bass with was with this typical Ned rig. This is a Ned worm. I caught fish on this one actually before we even launched our boats. Just made a few casts before we even got into kayaks, and I caught a really nice one on this right there at the put-in at Calvary. This works in the flowing water at the beginning of this float. However, as you get through this float, it changes into a little bit more impounded water, but the first mile or so of it holds smallmouth bass. Ashley Reeves, our photographer, threw this bait. This is a wacky rig, and this is what is called a flatworm. These are designed for the drop shot technique, and worms designed for the drop shot technique are great wacky rig worms for streams. This is a 1/16 ounce head. Some people say you should never use a weighted head with wacky rigging, but that's people who fish lakes. In streams, I have no problem with that head because it'll get it to where it just falls through the water column and that just undulates like that. It drives them nuts. This is another Ned style worm. I fished it wacky, but then eventually I switched to what is known as a nose rig presentation. And a nose rig works great for heavily salted baits, baits that have some density. You don't need a weight for these. This just falls through the water column in a spiral that resembles a fish that's struggling, and fish love them. Smallmouths, largemouths, spots, any black bass will hit this. But the other thing, toward the end of the float, it gets a little deeper and the water gets a little more color to it. So I switched over to a bigger wacky rig. This is a 4-inch Cinco in the natural shad color. You notice that bait fish kind of colors tended to work pretty well here in the Rolling Fork. And this is your typical crawfishy color, even though it's green pumpkin goby. It's got some crazy, I love that color. I've caught more smallmouths on that than just about any of the Ned rig colors. So don't be afraid, even though it looks a little trippy, it kills them. We hope that you come down here and float and check out our Blue Water Trails page at fw.ky.gov and enjoy it. Come and immerse yourself into beauty, clear water. You're gonna see so many fish, you're gonna catch so many fish that you can put all those worries away for just a little while and
and get away from the world for a bit.